Somewhere deep in the Masai Mara, under the burning sun and the unending sky, a moment was born where the wild itself paused, a moment when instinct gave way to compassion, when survival transformed into sacrifice, and when the unlikeliest of bonds rewrote the law of the savannah. Masai Mara stretched endlessly, its golden grasslands shimmering in the relentless blaze of the midday sun. Each blade of grass swayed in the dry wind, carrying whispers of dust and the unbroken rhythm of ancient life. Acacia trees stood like painted silhouettes against the horizon, and between their shadows moved a family not of men but of giants. Elephants, the living pillars of the wilderness, moved in solemn grace. Their ears fanned with steady breath, their trunks curled like instruments of wisdom. They were not just animals, they were memory itself, walking vessels of history and kinship. And within their circle of unity there was youth, a playful calf, curious and alive with innocence. It kicked up the dust, trumpeting in delight, chasing wind-blown leaves like a child after a kite. Yet innocence is fragile, easily swayed by distraction. The calf strayed too far, its small feet wandering into silence where grass grew taller, where danger crouched unseen. In that silence, beneath thorn shadows, a predator waited, the African rock python, its cold gaze glinting like a polished stone of death. It did not rush, it did not falter. Patience was its weapon. And then, with a speed that defied the stillness, it struck. Coils like living chains wrapped the calf, each loop a tightening curse, each breath stolen. The calf cried, a sound so raw it pierced the air like a spear through the heart of creation. It was not only the voice of an animal in peril, it was the voice of life itself, pleading for mercy in a world that often offers none. And in that cry, heaven itself seemed to shudder. For the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Far away at the forest's edge sat Kumba, a silverback gorilla whose back gleamed with the crown of age, a warrior's silver mantle. He was a king, but not of the plains. His world was the forest, his kingdom defined by shadows and roots, his law written in the safety of his troop. He rarely crossed into the sun-scorched lands of the savannah. It was not his place. Yet on this day, destiny called him from his throne of leaves. That desperate cry froze his heart. It was not the call of his kind, but something deeper, the universal language of fear. Kumba's chest rose as he listened, his pulse quickening with a truth older than species. Pain belongs to all who breathe. Without thought, he surged forward, crashing through thorn and brush, until his eyes fell upon the scene. The calf was on its knees, fighting but failing, its gaze lifted toward him, not in recognition, but in a plea too sacred to ignore, a plea for deliverance. And in that gaze the gorilla saw something familiar, the eyes of a child, not elephant, not human, but life. Rescue the weak and the needy, deliver them from the hand of the wicked. Kumba froze at first. His world had never demanded this of him. He was no savior of elephants. He was no breaker of the savannah's laws. This was not his fight, yet some battles are chosen for us. The calf's cry shattered his hesitation. A roar erupted from deep within him, not just a sound, but a declaration, a war drum of compassion. The python hissed, unbothered by sentiment, its scales gleaming with pitiless strength. To it there was no bond, no miracle, only hunger. It constricted tighter, each coil ringing out hope. The calf's trunk flailed, small and desperate, its breath fading. Kumba pounded his chest, the forest in his blood colliding with the savannah's silence. He stepped into the ring of death, not for survival, but for sacrifice. It was no longer instinct, it was choice. And that choice made him greater than predator, greater than prey. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. The python turned its gaze toward the intruder, its jaws unhinged, its hiss rattling like broken glass. Kumba did not falter. He lunged, his massive hands gripping the serpent's muscular tail. A tug-of-war began between merciless instinct and fearless compassion. The ground shook beneath their struggle. The calf's cries weakened, its body slackening. But before despair could win, the earth itself answered. A thunder rose in the distance. The herd was coming. The mother's trumpet pierced the horizon, a sound of anguish that made the sky tremble. Dust lifted, hooves thundered, and suddenly the savannah was alive with the charge of giants. The elephants stormed forward, a wall of rage and grief. They surrounded their young, tusks gleaming, eyes burning with fury. Yet they hesitated, for one false step could crush their child. And then they saw it, the impossible. A gorilla, blood dripping from his arm where fangs had sunk deep, was wrestling their enemy. A gorilla not of their kind, fighting with them, not against them. The herd stilled, their fury transforming into awe. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either falls, one can help the other up. The python writhed, its coils loosening under the unrelenting force of Kumba's grip. Pain seared through the gorilla, but his eyes burned with something greater than pain, resolve. With one final heave, fueled by the cries of the calf and the thunder of the herd, he tore the serpent away. The python, realizing the war was lost, slithered back into the shadows, swallowed by the very grass that had concealed it. Silence fell. The calf collapsed to the ground, gasping, trembling, its wide eyes staring at life returned. The mother rushed forward, her trunk caressing her child, her tears watering the dry earth. Around them, the herd lifted their trunks skyward, a chorus of triumph and gratitude, and Kumba, battered, bleeding, but unbowed, stood among them. For a fleeting moment, predator and prey, forest and savanna, gorilla and elephant, were bound by a truth that outlives death. Compassion is the greatest strength of all. The elephants bowed their massive heads, as if in reverence to the unlikely warrior. And then the herd moved, the calves safely within their circle once more. Cumber turned back toward his forest, his figure fading into the shadows. But his roar lingered, echoing through the plains like a prayer, a reminder that in the heart of the wild, miracles are not myths. They are born in the choices we dare to make, and so the calf lived, and so the herd remembered. And so the gorilla returned to his family, carrying a scar not of defeat, but of love, proof that even in the fiercest wild, humanity beats within every creature. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. Cumber's heavy breath slowed as he stood before the trembling calf, his towering frame casting a long shadow across the savanna floor where dust still lingered from the battle. The young elephant blinked, its eyes wide but steady now, and the gorilla's massive hand extended slowly, reverently, until a single finger touched the calf's forehead. It was not the touch of dominance nor of conquest, but of comfort, a silent message that needed no words. "It's okay, little one. You are safe." Around them, the elephants stood in a perfect circle, their immense bodies glowing gold beneath the dying light. Their ears no longer flared in panic, their trunks no longer trumpeted despair. Instead, silence reigned, heavy and holy, as if the entire savanna itself had bowed its head to witness the sacredness of this moment. Suspicion still lingered in their watchful gazes, but as the seconds stretched, disbelief began to soften into something deeper, a quiet wonder. "The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the young goat, and a little child shall lead them." The mother elephant stepped forward, her massive form trembling with a mixture of rage, grief, and relief. Her eyes, dark and unyielding, locked onto Cumber. Here was a stranger, an intruder who had crossed the line of nature's law. Her first instinct was suspicion. Who was he to interfere in the affairs of elephants? And yet she did not see an enemy. She saw his wounds, blood dripping from his torn arm, and his bowed head lowered not in fear but in humility. Cumber did not flee. He did not bare his teeth nor beat his chest in pride. He stood still, quiet, his massive frame bent in a gesture of surrender, as if to say, "I will leave if you wish it. I ask nothing in return." But then the miracle happened. The calf, still trembling, released a soft, fragile sound, a cry not of fear, but of gratitude. It was like a whisper carried by the wind, a voice only hearts could hear. The mother froze, torn between instinct and something far greater. She turned her gaze to her child, and in that moment her anger melted. Her trunk rose, reaching out, and with a gentleness that defied her size, she touched Cumber's wounded shoulder. That single touch was not just contact of skin to skin. It was the dissolving of barriers, a bridge forged between two worlds. It was not language, yet it spoke louder than words. It was not tradition, yet it carried the weight of eternity. Love binds everything together in perfect harmony. The herd remained still, the air vibrating with reverence. No one moved, no one dared disturb the sanctity of this union. For in that gesture, all the rules of nature were rewritten. Predator and protector, stranger and family, gorilla and elephant, two souls connected by compassion, standing in defiance of the cruel laws of survival. Slowly, Cumber turned. He did not crave applause nor recognition. He had no need for glory. He simply walked away, his gait heavy with exhaustion, his blood dripping into the thirsty earth.